Okay, so welcome to the next section, and this is, it might be earlier in the course, but this is actually the last section I'm recording with Sonia for this first course, and especially lesson 1. And then she's going back to Switzerland next week.
Yes, leaving on Sunday, so...
Okay. So, yeah, I thought we'd just have a natural conversation. Of course, it's not entirely natural when you're in front of the camera, but you got used to it and you feel more confident now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So would you like to tell me about an adventure you've had in your life? I mean, connected with travel.
Well, I suppose most travel is an adventure because it's the unknown. You don't know what's going to happen. You go with an open mind, and you're prepared for things to go right, for things to go wrong. It's so any travel for me is an adventure, really. For example, driving back to Switzerland on Sunday, that's an adventure. It doesn't have to be some incredible journey. For me, life is an adventure. So
okay, well, you and Lynn often accuse me of not listening, so now I'm going to accuse you of not listening. I'd like you to give me an example of an adventure you've had.
A specific
traveling.
Adventure.
Yes.
Okay, a specific adventure. I suppose a big adventure for me was when I decided to go traveling on my own. It was my 50th year, and I decided to have a bit of a year out. And I flew to Arizona and then drove by car up to see the Grand Canyon, which was always a dream of mine. And doing that on my own was a real adventure. It turned out that actually I didn't like it that much, and I decided that I much preferred sharing my experiences. But it was still, yes, that was a big adventure for me, I think. Traveling on my own in America, in a car, driving up towards... It was a great feeling.
Yeah, and you planned to stay there much longer, but actually, yeah, like you said...
Yes, I planned to stay for 3 months, and I came back after a week. Because I decided that was not what I wanted to experience in my time out. America's an enormous place, and it's fascinating and beautiful, but also traveling can be a little bit lonely if you're not, if you can't share. And I'm very much a person who loves sharing my experiences. And it was still, though, I have absolutely no regrets. It was a fantastic adventure.
And I think when you came back, then you went out to Bali,
Yes, I then decided to join a friend of mine in Bali, and I went out there for a couple of months, and that was a huge adventure as well, and very, very varied. It's a beautiful island, Bali, as you know, you've been, and I loved that very much, and I was on my own there quite a bit as well, so that was a big adventure. In a way, it's almost more of an adventure if you do it on your own, because it's a little bit scary to let go of the support and the companionship and everything.
Yeah. Well, if you're with someone, then probably you're going to be with that person most of the time or all the time. But if you're on your own, you never know what's going to happen, or especially who you're going to meet, which of course can be a big adventure, but of course
pros and cons.
It depends on who you are. I mean, I spent a long time traveling, and some of the time, because of my personality a bit, I don't easily strike up a conversation with people. So, and maybe people think I'm not very sociable or want to be left alone. So, and you do end up on your own quite a bit if you're not careful. But on the other hand, I met all sorts of people, and if I'd been with someone, then I couldn't have had that adventure.
Often, you know, if two people are together, they don't talk to people so much. Whereas if you're on your own, so.
Okay.
So what would you say was your biggest adventure then?
Well, I was thinking about this before, and as you know, when I was about 26, I bought a one-way ticket to Australia, and I thought I might come back to Britain after 6 months or a year, but who knows? Who knows is a very good expression, isn't it? Who knows?
Yes.
However, I actually came back 15 years later.
That's quite a long
So-
adventure.
Well, yeah, so in a way, the whole thing was an adventure. But one of the things that stands out is when I spent the first year in Australia, then a year in New Zealand, travelling, doing different jobs, and then I came back to Australia, and then I went up to, I think it's called Cape York, which is the furthest point northeast in Australia, and I tried to hitch a ride on a boat to Papua New Guinea. But that wasn't possible. I think it was the wrong time of year, so I ended up flying to Papua New Guinea because I'd started to become interested in doing long walks in the mountains, in the jungle, and so on. And I'd read about a very famous walk called the Kokoda Trail, or Kokoda Track, which is about 10 days.
Gosh,
And
it's a long walk.
it is a long walk, and there's lots of not lots of actually, a few villages along there, and but I took it's actually a tent called a bivouac,
Yes.
which is a very, very small tent. You can't even sit up. You just go in and go to sleep. You see? That's what we were talking about. It's because you're used to me asking the questions, that's the problem.
No, because you're telling a story and I was listening, so you just suddenly stopped, which I'm not quite sure what comes next.
Well, I don't want to bore you. You need to ask me.
Oh, I see. Okay. So you spent your nights in this bivouac.
Bivouac, yeah.
And what did you eat? What did you drink in a country where you're very unfamiliar with what's around? There's no shops, I expect, in this jungle. Or
Well, no, they're in
bars
these
or-
little villages, which were really, there were no roads. You either walked, the villagers walked, or some of them had these very small, we'd say a landing strip for a very small aeroplane. And in fact, usually the planes in Papua New Guinea that go to these little villages are missionary planes.
Right, yes.
So to do with Christian and so on. So I was carrying some, in fact I remember eating a lot of muesli, but just by the hand.
Right.
So I wasn't really that prepared.
No milk for sale, I expect.
No, well, maybe they had long life milk or something. But sometimes that's the other thing, when you're in these situations, people are very hospitable. So it is a long time ago now, but I seem to remember people cooking for me a little bit and being generous.
So you met quite a lot of people in this jungle. There were people around.
Well, when I started, I remember very clearly, sort of going downhill at the beginning and straight into the jungle. And after about an hour, the first people I saw were these huge local people. And although Papua New Guinea is kind of next to Indonesia and so on, they're not Asian at all. They're really like huge, dark African people. And they had machetes, these big knives.
That must have been quite
and
scary.
rifles. And I thought, oh my God.
This could be the end of me.
Because I was there on my own, they must have guessed I had some money and credit card, camera. Could have easily killed me and no one would ever know. But I think that's a really important thing when you travel, is to trust.
Yes.
If you look scared, if you act scared, you're attracting
Yes, sure.
problems in a way. Okay.
I think that's probably the biggest thing about adventure, isn't it? That you trust that whatever happens is going to be interesting and fun and good experience.
Yeah.
And if you were scared, you would never go on an adventure because
That's true.
There'd be no point. Yeah.
On the other hand, very useful expression.
Yeah.
A few weeks after this, also in Papua New Guinea, I'd read a book about a woman actually some years before who bought a dugout canoe. Do you know what a dugout canoe is?
I assume it's a wooden canoe that's...
Yeah, you make it from a tree trunk.
Yes.
Just one the trunk.
Yeah.
And you make a bit of a hole in it. And so I bought one of these for about, I don't know, £10 or something, very cheap. And I just decided to head off on this big river, the Sepik River, that she had also done. And, okay, we're talking about trust, but the first day or two I was so scared of crocodiles.
I can imagine. Anything living in a river like that obviously is possibly
But
dangerous.
I never saw one. I think most of them had either been hunted or they'd moved to the tributaries. Tributary is the little rivers that lead to the big river. But yeah, I did that for about a week too, and that mostly on my own, but was good fun. Okay, so that's just another little natural conversation for you. I will have put some useful expressions and words at the bottom. All right, and thank you, Sonia, for your usual words of wisdom and positive thinking.
You're welcome. Thank you.